It's about to happen. Google's about to announce earnings, and they're really the first major hyperscaler to announce earnings this cycle or this earnings season. So it's going to be fascinating to watch what they announce for CapEx, what they're showing in terms of growth, and to look a little bit deeper because the headline numbers might be a little bit misleading. If you don't mind, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this one. We're going to keep this short, but this is a very important day since Google's announcing earnings. Let's get into it. So, Google is expected to announce earnings with pretty great earnings growth and revenue growth. Revenue is expected to go up 21.3%, up to $118 billion this quarter. EPS is expected just under $3 per share at $2.91 for a 25.9% growth. A lot of people will be watching their cloud growth. A lot of people are going to be making sure that their search revenue is not going down. And a lot of people will be looking at CapEx. Now, one thing that might be a little bit misleading, they own a couple different companies, I believe, Anthropic and SpaceX, which they could mark up the values on since SpaceX recently went public and Anthropic, I think, has been raising capital at higher valuations. So be very careful of this EPS number. They've been able to grow, though, very quickly recently, even outside of that. Like if we go into their cloud backlog, it's been exploding, doubling last quarter from 240 billion to 460 billion. Their net income exploded to 63 billion basically from 34. So their earnings per share went from 282 up to 511 last quarter. So their profitability is looking really good. Their PE looks really good, which can be a little bit misleading. What you really want to look at isn't even free cash flow. That's what you would typically look at, but they're spending so much on capex that can be thrown off as well. Last quarter they spent $35 billion on capex. The quarter before that, $28 billion. The quarter before that, $23 billion, $24 billion, $22.5 billion. So they're exploding in terms of capex. They're expecting 2026 capex of about $185 billion and 2027 capex to be significantly higher, with roughly 60% directed to servers and 40% to data centers. Now, why, what can we look at then? If we can't use EPS, if we can't use free cash flow, what I would be looking at is operating free cash flow or cash from operating activities, free cash flow. Last quarter, they announced 45.79 billion, which is a 26.7% increase year over year. The cash flow from operating activities was 386.7 billion for the trailing 12 months, which is a 27.6% increase year over year. So I would be looking at that. That tells you what the business is actually making before reinvesting in itself, in a nutshell. So that's what I'd be paying attention to. Obviously, the capex numbers are going to be very important. Some people are saying that that Google's going to have to kind of like announce something that tanks the stock to then bring up the rest of the market, which is heavy capex numbers, to reiterate guidance or even most likely raise guidance for capex. To be clear, I think they will probably raise capex guidance, but I don't think that this is necessarily going to be terrible for Google. Sure, it might hurt them short term, but I trust them to make wise investments. So long term, I think investing a lot into AI for them makes a lot of sense. We're seeing incredible growth too. If we look at their cloud operating margins, we went from 30.1% up to 32.9%, which is crazy. I mean, that's incredible growth. And that was after they went from 23.7 to 30.1. Like that is a 6.4% increase in operating margin in one quarter. So I trust them. Obviously, we're going to have to break down their individual business lines. So Google Search has been proving a lot of bears wrong recently, with it still growing 19.1% year over year. So a lot of people will be watching this number. Q2 comp isn't that hard to beat. Q4 was a nice jump, so that might be harder towards the end of the year. But so far, I think, yeah, they'll probably post some pretty good Google search numbers. If we show Google Cloud, I'm doing this the most inefficient way possible. Google Cloud has grown really quickly too, 63.3%. So if they can continue the 60% growth, it's going to be incredible. And I think you'll actually see the stock pop. There's an implied volatility of just over 5%. So if they can keep this growth at 60%, 63% for cloud, that would be obviously fantastic. So a lot of people will be watching cloud growth, search, CapEx, and they'll be watching the operating free cash flow and cash from operating activities as well. We'll have to kind of be paying attention to the balance sheet too. I mean, they have still a good balance sheet right now, better than most of big tech, even with about $50 billion of cash after you subtract out debt. But it's been getting worse, to be clear. Q4, they had 80 billion. Last quarter, they had 50 billion. So they spent 30 billion more than they actually made. So yeah, it'll be interesting. They've been issuing bonds as well, or issuing more shares. So yeah, we'll be paying attention to this. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Of course, approach at your own risk, but this is my largest holding, second largest holding behind Amazon for individual stocks. I think there's a lot of upside to Google, even in the future. You know, even with it being a $4.2 trillion market cap, I think spending on AI for these major tech companies makes a lot of sense. I think this is like their huge next leg of growth that will make them incredibly, incredibly profitable, even more than they are right now. This is the tolls and roads of AI and future spending. So I think spending a lot right now will pay off in the end for these major companies, and it's very hard for anyone to compete with Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. I know that they're all kind of competing with each other, but also there's just a lot of business, so they're all still growing very quickly. Let me know your thoughts though underneath the video. Let me know what you're watching out for. Is there something that I missed? I think this will obviously impact a lot of the other AI companies as well, depending on what Google announces for CapEx. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all in the next video.